Over the years, I've become entirely unconvinced with the knowledge translation or the research translation model that most of us have, in that we do scientific research, we look at the world, and we come up with discoveries, and then we dispense that knowledge to the world. I think it just honestly does not work that way, that there is a simple translation, that it's just talking about knowledge, and people absorb that knowledge and turn things into betterment of their lives. I just have seen too many cases, too many situations in which people pursue things that are completely against what we know, that are often extraordinarily sort of almost like concrete facts that we know in science, that has been well understood, and people just look at that particular thing and decide to do something differently. And I think that is the key thing to remember, is that it's not about the provision of knowledge ever. Because I think if life was so simple and people were so programmed to pursue the thing that they actually like to pursue, or even understand what they should pursue, that it would be very, very simple. The equation would always work out in a certain way. And I think, progress would be very easy in a lot of ways for many people, and we'd be all better off, both as individuals and as society, and we'd all cooperate and all of those wonderful things. But in my experience, people know what the right answer is. A lot of smart people often know what the right answer is and pursue the complete opposite of what they should do because of many other things that are going on, whether it's fear, whether it is that they're nervous, all of these things that go on. And I think my view of how often this works is that people don't absorb knowledge. They don't learn in the way that everybody wants us to sort of think about. And the model that is described often in the research view, where you just absorb knowledge, you look at the world around you, you create knowledge, and you sort of act and improve. I think it's far more complicated than that. I think it often involves changing one person out of many, 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 many people, tens of thousands of people. They connect and they understand, they sort of get it, but then they go and change. They do something in the sense that they build something or they create something, and that is so easy to absorb. People don't even understand that they're actually absorbing and changing their ways by doing it. It's not this kind of direct way that we often think about. Because I think, that there's far more complexity to it, and often involves a lot of human nature in terms of how we think about things and how we behave and how we get along with others. That is just far more complicated, and we don't really have a good sense for how that actually understands. And it's not often even a decision for most people. I think that is the interesting thing, is that we presume, at least in the stuff that I read, and I think it's pretty mainstream, is that we presume that people have all of these decisions that they actually make, and they make them decisively in a certain way. But in reality, when you look at how people actually interact with the world, they often have no choice about that decision, or when they pursue that decision, they view it in a far different way than you do, even though that the evidence is presented in the same way, and it just doesn't hit in the same way. And you can't necessarily be angry at people for deciding in a different way. I think in my view, I've become, as I've sort of grown with the way that I view the world, as a fancy schmancy research professor, I have ultimately given up on the way that we understand science, and I've turned to more acceptance. And I almost view that there's two worlds. there's the world that I read that's often incorrect and wrong. And that is the research world. And it often does not match reality very well. When you actually go and try to apply the things that are said and written, you realize it does not work out. And then we have the real world, that people are living their lives. And even very smart people that I know that are in the research world, and they read all of the fancy smancy stuff and all of the scientific findings, they go and they do the same thing that everybody else does rather than what is actually written in the fancy smancy books. I have become, and because of that, and all of these circumstances where you see that there's a clear answer, it's often you just have to pursue a certain way and everything's going to work out. That, that belief, that idea is just simply not true. And I have become very accepting about myself. I think ultimately it's accepting of myself to realize that I don't really understand the world as much as I thought I did. And accepting of other people. If they choose something that's differently, if they pursue something that's differently, it's not a choice often, but they pursue something that's differently, and then it's when it's all clearly laid out and it's a very easy choice, then I have to accept it. And I have to accept them for who they are and where they are at this moment, just as much as I have to accept myself for not understanding the world in the way that I thought I did. And that's a hard thing for me. The accepting myself is harder than accepting other people. But I've had to learn and grow and become a better person because of it. And I still can't accept many things. It still is challenging, but I'm starting to see the world in a different way, and I'm starting to be less so upset when the world doesn't see the same way that I do. Take care. Have a wonderful day.